Hello fellow clashers, this is Kairos and welcome to the single most requested video on my channel ever, the Kairos ladder tier list. Thank you so much for jumping on, guys. Today we're going to be covering version 1, August 2017, of the ladder tier list. All of the win rates and the usage rates that I used to try and determine exactly which cards should go into which tiers were pulled from statsroyale.com. Now, I was actually really hesitant to do a ladder tier list because there are so many different metas out there. I wanted to try and make a list that was going to be most applicable to most people, and so I decided to do the Legendary Arena. Now, Legendary Arena is unique. It is the largest arena with the widest spread of trophies, but I do feel like there are specific cards in the Legendary Arena that are good and ones that are poor, especially because all the cards are available. The meta doesn't seem to shift too much until you start to find maxed out cards, and then things kind of change, and that's a different meta. But that being said, that's a small group of people in there, and so I think that this is going to be the best way to cater to the most viewers. If you do see some cards that are ranked a little bit differently than you would expect, because you are in a lower trophy range, that's to be expected, and I still think this will help you out. Another reason why I was a little hesitant to do this is because of rarity and level dependency. Some cards are easy to level up, and some are really difficult to level up depending on the rarity. That being said, there are also some cards that really do well when they're over leveled, and cards that really do poorly when they're under leveled. As such, I tried to keep a good balance between all of that and try and determine the best tiers for each of these cards. One of the biggest suggestions that I have for my viewers is to try and put out these tier lists, the challenge tier list and the ladder tier list, more frequently. As such, I'm trying to look for easy and creative ways to try and cut out my production time, because they do take a very long time to create, without decreasing the quality of content that you're receiving. As such, you won't see the actual use rates and the win rates in this video, but I did use them to create the actual tiers, and they are going to be in the description of the video, as well as in the comment section below. Now, we are going to be placing every single card in the game into a tier. So what I'm doing is I'm placing them into groups and placing them according there to try and make this video go a little bit faster and get you the information that you need. In version 2 and on, what we'll do is we'll take a look at each cards that are moving from different tiers to look at all the details and specifically why I think they belong in a different tier. To start off, we have the 3 most used cards in any deck in the Legendary Arena: Fireball, the Log, and Zap. You almost never see a deck without one of these 3 cards in the Legendary Arena, and a lot of times you see 2 of them, and even sometimes you see people using all 3 of them. These cards are extremely versatile. The Log, even though it is a legendary, provides massive amounts of value even if it is lower level. Zap, being a common, is extremely versatile, and then the Fireball as well provides a lot of value as a rare card. Then we have the Knight, Archers, the Minions, and then the Goblin Gang. Each of these cards are commons, meaning that it's very easy to level them up to a competitive standard, and they're all pretty good when they're a little over leveled as well. They are extremely versatile and fit into almost any type of deck in the game, whether it be Siege, Beatdown, or Control. Lastly, we have the Ice Spirit. The Ice Spirit is the king of cycle and provides massive amounts of value. The Ice Spirit is great for a lot of different types and is the best for cycling cards, and as such it deserves a spot in the S tier because of all of that, along with its high usage rate. These are the S tier cards, and they are excellent for the meta in the Legendary Arena. Next, we have the A tier, which is cards that are very good for the Legendary Arena. To start things off, we have the 6 primary win conditions. You have the Golem, the Giant for the beatdown corner, you have the Miner, Hog Rider for the control corner, and then you have the Expo and the Mortar for the Siege corner. Now, obviously the Giant, the Hog Rider, and the Mortar are all really easy to level up to a competitive point in the Legendary Arena. As such, they definitely are some of the first ones that you should try and go to. But if you are willing to commit to getting one epic up, the Golem and the Expo are a great option as well. The Miner finds himself in the A tier because he is pretty good even if he is under leveled, and even a level 2 or 3 does really well in the Legendary Arena for a very long time. Next, we have the A tier spells Poison, Tornado, and the Arrows. Now, Poison does offer a lot of value. It's not quite good enough for the S tier because it is an epic and it's difficult to level to the point where it is competitive, but it does get rid of Swarm Troops, and that's its primary purpose. When you do also have the Tornado, which is an epic, but it doesn't really matter what level the Tornado is. You almost never use the Tornado for its damage, you use it for its pulling power. Finally, the arrows do offer a lot of value against a lot of different cards. It had actually a surprisingly high usage rate, and I think that that's mostly because of the Night Witch. We'll see if the arrows do continue to find a lot of value after the Night Witch has been nerfed. But I do think that they will, because Spellbait seems to become a little bit more strong in the meta after the Night Witch has been nerfed. Next we have the Executioner, Mini P.E.K.K.A, and the Barbarians. I chose these three cards as very good for the meta when it comes to actual defense. Obviously the Mini P.E.K.K.A is very good right now because of its recent buff. The Executioner does a good job at taking care of a lot of different swarm cards, as well as it doesn't really matter if it's underleveled a little bit. As an epic, it still usually tends to provide a lot more value than his other 5 elixir brother, the Wizard. Next we have the Barbarians, and I put the Barbarians in the very good category because the Barbarians offer so much defensive ability against the primary win conditions, including Siege. When you're playing Siege, it's almost impossible for you to get rid of Barbarians fast enough so that your Siege building will actually be able to lock onto the tower. Because of that, I think that the Barbarians are going to be a good fit, a very good fit for the current meta, as they also do stop the other win conditions like the Giant, the Hog Rider, the Golem, and the Miner. Obviously, then we have the Inferno Tower and the Tombstone. I think both of these are very great options when it comes to defensive buildings. Next, we have the Baby Dragon, Musketeer, Mega Minion, and the Goblins. I think all of these cards are very good. They're very versatile both on offense and defense. They can be used to counter push. Baby Dragon is pretty good when it's underleveled, and then the Musketeer and the Mega Minion are easy to level up, as well as the Goblins because of their rarity. Obviously, it's important that if you're going to be using the Musketeer that you have her leveled up to the point where she won't be fireballed very frequently by people that have 1 level higher of a fireball. If you can do that, she's a great option. Last card we have for the very good tier is the Elixir Collector. The Elixir Collector is a card that fills 1 set of rules that no other card can. Not only does it allow you to build up a lot of extra elixir, but it also forces your opponent to go on the offense when you want them to. This is particularly good for beatdown and siege decks, where you might want your opponent to go on the offense at the time when you feel comfortable defending against it, so that you can then later on, once you have the advantage, start building up your push, making you a lot less vulnerable. Also, for siege players, it works great as rocket and fireball bait, which is very important because if a fireball's going down on your mortar, as well as all of the troops that are there to support your mortar, it's going to put you at a disadvantage very quickly and can cost you the match. Next, we have the B tier. These are cards that are good. They're not as amazing as the A tier or the S tier, but they're good to use. And definitely a lot of decks will be using a lot of these in their actual decks. First off, we have the Lava Hound and the P.E.K.K.A. These are your beatdown win conditions. Now, these both struggle a little bit when it comes to being difficult to level up to a competitive point, especially the Lava Hound, where if the Lava Hound pops and the Zap is 2 levels higher than it, then it will get rid of those lava pups, and that is really difficult for a legendary card. The P.E.K.K.A. as well, just it's really difficult to get a lot of value when it comes to that offensive ability, even though she does do a great job on defense. For control win conditions, we have the Graveyard, the Goblin Barrel, the Balloon, and the Battle Ram. All of these are good to use, but you do have to make sure that you build a deck around them to get the value out of it that you want to. Now, I did specifically want to talk about the Royal Giant and the Elite Barbarians. Now, the Royal Giant and the Elite Barbarians, I was actually tempted to put into 2 separate tiers, the C tier and the A tier. The difference between the two is how overleveled they are. If they're not overleveled and they're just like a regular card, then honestly they fit into the C tier where they're just poor or fair options. They're not the greatest to use. But if you overlevel them, they are very good. And because they're commons, they're very easy to overlevel. Now, I did want to briefly mention that at about 4,600 trophies in the Legendary Arena, people start to be using a lot more maxed cards. And once they start using those maxed cards, all of a sudden, the Elite Barbarians and the Royal Giants stop becoming overleveled and they're just regular cards. So I think up until 4,600 trophies, the Royal Giant and the Elite Barbarians do work pretty well if you have them overleveled, but after that, there are just better options. Next, we have the Lightning and the Rocket. They're good options to use if you have a specific deck that wants to use it. They're not as versatile as the other spells that we've already mentioned, but they're good to use. Next, we have a set of legendary cards that are really great options when it comes to competitive standard, but the Night Witch, Princess, Ice Wizard, Electro Wizard, and the Bandit all struggle because the amount of value that they get when they're under level just does not do well enough for them to be competitive in the actual legendary arena. Now, I did briefly want to touch on the Ice Wizard. I put him here in the B, even though he's very clearly either A or S when it comes to the challenge arena, or when it comes to the challenge meta. But the thing with the Ice Wizard is that he actually got a buff, meaning that he's able to one-shot minions or skeletons and bats. But in the legendary arena, it's very unlikely that you're going to be facing bats and skeletons that are the same level as your Ice Wizard. That means that it's very difficult for him to really offer the value that he has, and I think that he's good in the B tier. Next we have the Bowler, Skeleton Army, Ice Golem, Valkyrie, the Minion Horde, the Fire Spirits, and then the Skeletons. All of these cards offer a lot of different types of roles and things like that. A lot of times they may be outshined by other cards or may only fit into specific types of decks. I think that if you have the right deck for them, then these definitely are good options to use. Lastly, we have the Cannon. I do think that the Cannon is a good option to use, and I think that it will continue to be good because of the siege that is coming into the meta. The Cannon does a good job at countering both the Mortar and the X-Bow if you're able to place it early enough and as long as it does not get distracted. As such, it is very important that you have the Cannon leveled up to the point where it needs to be competitive with your opponents. Man, I wish I had a level 4 Bandit. Next we have the C tier. This is the tier for cards that are fair. They typically don't offer a lot of value themselves, almost never actually, but in use in combination with other cards, they can be pretty good for the right decks if you do have them. They do tend to specifically fill 1 or 2 roles. First off, we have the Lumberjack, Inferno Dragon, the Dark Prince, Witch, and the Guards. I think that they do offer some value, but they usually only offer value in very specific types of decks. Next we have the Freeze and the Heal. I think that both of these cards are really great in the hands of the right player. They offer a lot of value for somebody that knows how to use them, but there's only 1 or 2 different types of decks that these work well with. As such, they deserve a spot in the C tier. That does bring into mind the Three Musketeers. The Three Musketeers are fair, and the reason why they're in this category is because they are so easily taken care of by Fireball, and Fireball is so prevalent in the Legendary Arena, so it's difficult to try and get the Three Musketeers to the point where they can provide the value that they need to be. That being said, if you can level up the Three Musketeers past the point of your other cards, they are a very great option to use, especially if you can keep them to the point where they do not get fireballed in one shot by opponents that have higher level fireballs. Next we have the Wizard, the Furnace, Dark Goblin, the Bomber, and the Bats. All of these cards are either do not provide enough value themselves or are outshined by other cards. And only fit into specific situations. Now the Bats I have a feeling that the Bats are going to be moving up to the B tier in the next tier list. We'll see exactly how they are. I'd like to see more people level them up and actually start using them in the ladder to quite see things. As I'm making this video, it's one day after the balance changes, so I want to see where the Bats are before moving them up to the B tier. Lastly, we have the F tier. These are the poor cards to use for the current meta. Very difficult to get value out of these cards, and even if you can get value out of them, they do really struggle most of the time, even if you can make them work once or twice. First of all, we have Sparky, the Giant Skeleton, and the Prince. Now, these cards right here they're just too easy to distract. It's just too hard to try and get them onto the tower, and even if you do get them onto the tower once or twice, it's not going to happen very consistently, especially in the Legendary Arena, where players are very skilled and know how to counter these specific cards. Then we have the Cannon Cart. I was actually tempted to not put the Cannon Cart in the tier list because so few people have it leveled up to the point where it would actually be competitive in the Legendary Arena. But also, we almost never see Cannon Carts in challenges, and I have won a couple of challenges with just classic challenges with the Cannon Cart, but those were very specific decks, and they did have the Graveyard and the Night Witch in them before they got a nerf, so I haven't retested that deck yet to see if it will work. Next we have the F tier spells, the Clone, Rage, and the Mirror. All 3 of them are really fun to play with. But if you want to play competitively in the ladder, they're just not great options. They really are not. It's difficult to get some good value out of them in most situations. Next, we have the F tier buildings, the Barbarian Hut, the Spear Goblin Hut, the Bomb Tower, and the Tesla Tower. Now, I don't think that I ever want the Spear Goblin hut and the Barbarian hut to really offer lots of value, so I'm pretty happy with it where they are at. The Bomb Tower, I think that it could use slightly a little bit more of a buff. I don't want it to become too defensive, as well as the Tesla Tower. I think that they're probably pretty good where they're maybe just a little bit of an increase in DPS or something like that to try and help them. The last card that we have are the Spear Goblins, and it saddens me to say this, but they just do not offer very much value in almost any kind of deck, even in spell-bait decks. I personally think that it would be really great to add a 4th Spear Goblin to the card. That way you're giving them a buff without actually having to increase their actual DPS or the hit points, which would indirectly buff the Goblin Gang. But also they would still be zappable and loggable, so that they offer just a little bit more of a threat that has to be responded to a little bit quicker and could provide some more value without being too much. Probably my favorite part about doing these tier lists is seeing your guys' comments regarding which cards you agree with and which cards you disagree with. Please drop a line below so I can see what feedback you have, and obviously subscribe for future content. These are some fantastic collaborators that really help me solidify which cards should be in each tier, and make sure you also drop a line on statsroyale.com. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. This is Kairos time ticking by, and we will see you in the arena.